She failed her dream and lost her love all in one day. In her world, academic failure meant her family would reject her. Yoo-jin was a top student with a dangerous secret. She once loved a scary thug but left him to study. Now that thug was back and sitting in her classroom, he had studied for a year just to find her again. Then a perfect medical student arrived to steal her away. She remembered a kiss that was never supposed to happen. Her secret past was slowly coming into the light, and the thug had a plan she never saw coming. In a noisy bar right in the heart of the university district, a study group is busy toasting to their futures. They're shouting about medical school dreams and successful retakes. But Chae Yoo-jin sits among them feeling like a total failure. At 20 years old, she's currently half repeating her freshman year just to get another shot at med school admissions. To her, this study group is a bust and she feels completely screwed. Looking exhausted but determined, our girl takes a long, heavy drink from her glass to drown out the noise. Yoo-jin checks the time and decides she's clocking out in 5 minutes. Suddenly, a hand reaches for her table, catching her off guard. A guy in a black turtleneck leans over, staring at her with way too much intensity, as he asks why she's pouring her own drink. This is Gang Jin-ha, and he's not hiding his interest. Our girl glares right back, telling him to get lost and not even think about talking to her. Undeterred by the cold shoulder, the guy moves in closer and announces he's taking the seat right next to her. Yoo-jin doesn't stop drinking, offering a flat don't as her only response. The intruder doesn't care, making himself comfortable while he watches her every move. He leans into her ear, whispering a suggestion that they should ditch this place and leave together. She keeps her eyes on her drink, thinking there's absolutely no way that's happening. Nearby, Kim Nam-gi raises his glass, cheering for the newcomer to join the toast and ignore the tension. Jun-ha laughs and tells the group they have a deal, immediately making himself the life of the party. Our girl watches him pour more drinks, thinking he's the most shameless jerk on the planet. This isn't just some random guy, he's her first love and her ex-boyfriend. More importantly, he's the culprit she blames for ruining her entrance exams the first time around. While he's loud and cheering with the group, she takes another bitter sip, remembering him only as the reason for her academic downfall. The fear that this jerk is back to ruin her life all over again hits her hard. Her mind flashes back to their sophomore year of high school, when they were dating in secret. Back then, a shirtless Jun-ha used to cause chaos in the hallways, messing with other students and acting like a total lunatic. His friends would call him out on his behavior while he just teased them to join in. Yoo-jin used to watch him from a distance with her friends, absolutely hating the way he acted at school. Her friends would constantly gossip, asking if he was just a thug or if he was actually dangerous. One friend even complained about his style, unable to understand why he was so popular. Our girl stayed silent during those talks because she knew a secret they didn't. She knew that if he actually tried to be charming, anyone would fall for him, exactly like she did. She watched him smile, knowing his bad boy reputation was only half the story. Looking back, she admits it was impossible to say no to a face like that. They were a total mismatch, the medical school hopeful and the local thug. They kept the relationship hidden to avoid the drama of school gossip, but she genuinely loved their time together. She remembers them counting down to reveal their mock exam results at the same time. He was blown away by her high scores, calling her smart and saying it was exactly what he expected from a future doctor. Even though he had zero interest in school, he always pushed her to study hard. The guy lived entirely by instinct, sleeping when he was tired and eating the second he felt hungry. He was blunt to a fault, even announcing when he had to use the bathroom, which constantly embarrassed her. To her, he was a handsome savage who thought she was the best for working so hard. She loved his free-spirited vibe, right up until the November mock exams changed everything. Everything went south when her grades tanked during those November exams. She knew she'd slacked off, but the drop was devastating. Panic set in as she worried she'd never get into med school, and she started wondering if the relationship was the real distraction. While she was spiraling and trying to tell herself not to be weak, she spotted her boyfriend joking around with another girl who was busy calling him cute. Instead of shutting it down, the guy joked right back and even agreed that the girl was cute. Watching this from the doorway, Yoo-jin decided on the spot that they were done. Later that night, she confronted him in the hallway to end it. He was blindsided, shouting and asking if she'd even thought about it. He couldn't process the fact that she was dumping him so suddenly right there in the dark. Our girl screamed that medical school was her priority and she didn't have the energy to waste on emotions. That hit him hard. Stung by the idea that their time together was just wasted energy, he snapped back. He asked if she was being too much by obsessing over school and told her that people destined for success don't need to be so dramatic about it. The words cut deep, and he immediately looked like he regretted opening his mouth. He stood there looking at the ground, clutching a shopping bag and looking miserable. He let out a heavy sigh, clearly wanting to take back the insult, but the damage was done. The silence between them grew heavy, and it was obvious the gap that had formed was too wide for him to bridge. She finalized the split by screaming that they should just break up for good. Barely 15 days later, she spotted him walking with a new girlfriend. They already had matching profile pictures, a level of commitment he never even showed her. She tried to tell herself she didn't expect him to wait around, but the speed of his recovery felt like a slap in the face. She couldn't understand how he wasn't even a little sad about their breakup. Feeling a massive sense of defeat, she regretted ever trusting him and decided to shut the world out. She convinced herself she didn't need anything but her books. But despite the isolation, her national test scores kept falling. When she saw a 92 in math, she spiraled, unable to understand why she was failing so miserably after giving up everything. The frustration grew as she struggled with problems she should have known. By November, the entrance exams ended with her worst performance yet. She started to believe she just wasn't good enough. She enrolled in a pharmacy program in Seoul as a safety net, but secretly planned a retake. Her father was dead set against it, telling her to accept reality and forbidding another attempt. Her stepmother tried to play peacemaker, noting that the girl still wanted to try one more time. Yoo-jin kept her secret retake plans hidden from her family while ignoring texts from friends asking why she skipped graduation. She couldn't handle seeing others succeed while she felt stuck, and she definitely didn't want her ex to know. She imagined him laughing with his new girl about her failure. Entering her 20s feeling like a loser, she began her new life at the university under a cloud of defeat. Since she couldn't take a leave of absence yet, she had to balance her major with her secret studies. She checked the campus community board for easy credits and found a post for a medical school study group. It was perfect, strictly for retakers and prohibited all socializing. Since she couldn't afford a cram school, she decided to join and headed to a local cafe to meet the group. At the cafe, our girl introduced herself as a pharmacy major. She met the group leader, a math major named Kim Nam-gi, along with Si-young and Hana. Nam-gi suggested they verify everyone's report cards while waiting for the final member. Just as she was digging through her bag, the last person arrived, apologizing for the delay and asking if this was the group for repeaters. She looked up, and her heart nearly stopped. There stood Jun-ha, smiling as if nothing was wrong, introducing himself as a philosophy major. Our girl was in total shock, staring at him in disbelief. Inside, she was screaming, wondering why in the world he had to show up in this specific place at this specific time. The ex joked that his grades might not be high enough for a med school group and handed over his report card for verification with a laugh. When Yoo-jin saw his scores, she was stunned. His improvement over a single year was insane. She couldn't believe he'd managed to get into the same university as her. He was the absolute last person on earth she wanted, knowing she was currently failing at her retake attempt. Nam-gi told the guy he'd have to leave since he wasn't gunning for med school, but the charmer insisted they all have a drink first. The group ended up at a bar where he immediately started teasing the leader, claiming that having fun is just another way to study. He joked that girls don't like guys who are too stiff, quickly winning over the room. Watching him charm everyone so easily, Yoo-jin felt a crushing sense of inferiority. When the ex noticed her pouring her own drink, he reached out and covered her hand on the bottle. She yanked it away instantly, telling him to back off and go bother someone else. He had the nerve to ask why she was being so cold when she used to love holding hands. She turned her head away, telling him flatly that their past was nothing more than ancient history. Desperate to escape, our girl decided to make a dramatic exit. She stood up and announced she was slamming her drink and heading home. To the shock of the entire group, she chugged a full bottle of soju in one go. She vowed to herself she wouldn't repeat her past mistakes as she walked out into the night, her face turning bright red from the alcohol. Once outside, the alcohol hit her like a truck, and her head began to throb. She immediately regretted the dramatic chug. Suddenly, something cold pressed against her forehead. The ex was there again, holding a hangover drink. He mocked her for trying to act tough with the soju, asking if it was her first time. She told him to move, but he grabbed her head to hold her steady. He caught her wrist when she tried to pull away, keeping her in place under the bright city lights. The atmosphere shifted as he interlocked his fingers with hers, his expression turning completely serious. Looking her right in the eyes, he told her clearly that he wanted to stay with her. She exploded in anger, asking if he was just there to mock her. She demanded to know if he came here on purpose to gloat over her failed exams. She accused him of coming back just to mess with her head after he'd already moved on to another girl. As she shouted, the world started spinning and her vision blurred as the dizziness took over. The booze finally won, and our girl slumped forward into his chest. She clung to his jacket just to stay upright, gasping for air. She tried to tell him her body wasn't listening, but she couldn't even get the words out. He held her close, whispering that she was in a whole lot of trouble right now. The guy looked down at her and repeated that she was in a very dangerous position. Yoo-jin felt her consciousness fading and tried to tell herself to get a grip, but it was a losing battle. Her eyes fluttered shut as she finally blacked out from the drink. The ex hoisted her onto his back, teasing her for finally being a good girl and listening to him. Even in her drunken state, a part of her mind still registered him as a dangerous presence. He smiled to himself, thinking he'd waited long enough before he started carrying her through the quiet nighttime streets. Later that night in the humanities building lobby, our girl groggily blinks her eyes open. She's horrified to discover she's been sleeping with her head resting right on Junha's lap. He's busy checking his phone, but notices she's awake and asks how she's feeling. The second she realizes the situation, she bolts upright in pure shock. Every cringeworthy thing she screamed earlier comes flooding back, making her want to disappear from embarrassment. The guy hands her another drink and tells her to finish it. She's at least relieved they're in a public lobby and not a motel. Then he tells her to stand up because he's taking her home, which completely catches her off guard. She tries to argue that she can manage on her own, but he just shows her his phone. A taxi is already on the way. The offer is too good to pass up. During the quiet ride, she tries to break the tension by asking why he picked philosophy of all things, joking that Socrates is probably rolling in his grave. He asks if that's really the only question she has. Jin thinks he's playing dumb about the real issues between them, so she gets blunt and asks what his angle is. He insists there isn't one and that he only got in because he actually studied. As the taxi reaches her place, she tells him she's retaking her exams and would appreciate it if he just stayed out of her way. When she tries to pay for the ride, he stops her, explaining that the payment is already handled automatically through his app. She hops out of the car and gives him a quick, awkward thank you. The taxi stays idling on the street as she prepares to duck inside and hide in her room. Before going in, she turns back and tells him they should just act like strangers because she's dying of shame. He stares at her for a long moment, asking if saying that actually makes her feel any better. He admits he's disappointed before finally turning to walk away into the distance. Our girl is left standing alone, finally ending their bizarre night. Back in her room, Jin collapses onto her bed, completely drained. She pulls out her phone and finds herself looking at a profile she's had blocked for a full year. Junha has been on that list since the day he changed his photo to a matching one with another girl, and he still hasn't changed it. She remembers his harsh words about how people succeed without making a fuss. Feeling defeated, she decides to quit the study group chat before finally dragging herself to bed. She opens the group chat and finds a massive wall of text from Namgi. He's practically begging her to stay since her grades are the highest in the group, promising they'll stay focused and only meet twice a month. She finds the long-winded message annoying and hits the exit button without a second thought. She tells herself she doesn't need any distractions, especially not her ex. The next day in class, a girl with pink hair walks right up to the ex and asks for his number, calling him exactly her type. Sitting just a few rows back, Jin can't believe her luck. She grumbles to herself, wondering why a humanities major is even in this building. It's clear his presence is the absolute last thing she wants to deal with while she's trying to learn. Our girl sighs, thinking about how the guy is always so loud and extra. She starts packing her bags, deciding to swap this class for something else just to avoid him. Meanwhile, the guy hands the pink-haired girl her phone back. When she sees the number, she asks if he's serious because it's just a random string of digits. He gives a blunt yeah and ignores her, showing zero interest. He ignores the fuming girl and turns his head to watch Jin slip out of the room. Later that night, the library announcement signals closing time. She joins the crowd leaving the building, shivering as the cold air hits her. She's just trying to head home when she spots a figure that makes her stop dead in her tracks. She spots a familiar figure leaning against a lamppost and realizes it's him. She can't believe he's actually been waiting for her outside the library. When he calls her name, she doesn't hold back, asking him what his problem is. She's completely defensive, wondering why he keeps invading her life when she's trying so hard to move on. During the standoff, another student accidentally bumps into her, sending her papers flying everywhere. She lets out a cry of frustration as she crouches to pick them up, muttering about her luck. The guy tells her he came because he has something important to say, but she snaps back that he's blocked for a reason and there's no point in talking. The ex crouches down to help with the papers, asking if she really thinks he's only here to bully her. Then he drops the truth. He only came to this university to see her. He reveals he spent a whole year studying his heart out just to get into the same school. Our girl is stunned into silence. That's when he looks her in the eye and confesses that he's still in love with her. He repeats his feelings, but she's so overwhelmed she asks what he's even talking about. His voice softens as he looks down, offering a genuine apology for hurting her in the past. It's a heavy moment between two exes in the cold, but her reaction suggests that a simple sorry might be too little, too late. Anger takes over as she asks why he's apologizing now after all this time. She's flooded with memories of crying at her desk and the devastation of failing to get into med school. She asks if he really thinks an apology fixes all that pain. Her answer is a cold no as she turns and walks past him, leaving him standing there in the silence. She tells him to just keep being the bad guy because it's easier for her that way. She admits she has zero energy to think about anything but her studies. Being a half-repeater is already hard enough without him adding emotional baggage. She looks completely drained, keeping her eyes on the ground as she shuts him out. She leaves him alone under the streetlights and heads back to her room. Sometime later, she's buried in her books, trying to find her focus again. The only sound is her pen on the paper until a sudden knock at the door breaks the silence. Looking a bit frazzled, she tells whoever it is to just come in. Her 25-year-old stepbrother, Lee Seok-jae, walks in with a plate of sliced apples from their mom. He warns her to be more stealthy, or her secret about being a half-repeater is going to get out. He also tells her to keep the weekend clear because they're visiting the columbarium. She checks her calendar and realizes it's almost time for her birth mother's memorial. Yoo-jin reflects on her blended family. Her birth mother passed away shortly after she was born, so she has no memories of her. She only knows her through the way her father smiles when he mentions her, which makes her think she must have been wonderful. She's also quick to note that her current mom is amazing, always supporting her with snacks and meals during her late-night study sessions. In a flashback to when she was 4, her father introduced her to the woman who would become her new mom. Young Yoo-jin was shy, hiding behind her father's legs while she stuttered a hello. The woman then introduced her own son, Seok-jae, telling him to greet his new sister. The boy gave a polite bow, and that was the moment their lives as a new family truly began. A year into the marriage, the arrival of Yura officially turned them into a family of 5. For our girl, it felt like the perfect domestic setup, a loving mother and a father who worked his tail off. To top it all off, the eldest son, Seok-jae, was a walking miracle. He was the golden child who never stepped out of line, dominating the top spot in his class and stacking up academic awards like they were trading cards. Fast forward to the present, and the brother is a medical student on the home stretch to his internship. Meanwhile, the youngest sibling carved out her own path to stardom, debuting as a child prodigy and blooming into a top-tier teen celebrity. She's even shown handing her parents cash from her earnings with a bright smile, a gesture of success that leaves the parents beaming with pride. In our girl's eyes, her siblings are untouchable angels. At the memorial service, she stands on the sidelines as her father praises the eldest son, calling him the family's true source of pride. Ever the considerate one, the brother tells the old man to head back before the cold sets in. Standing just a few feet away, Chae Yoo-jin feels like a ghost at her own family gathering. Once their father drives off, the med student finally turns his focus toward her. Our girl offers to handle the driving next year, but her brother immediately shoots it down, telling her not to worry about it and to focus on her books. He offers her a ride, and she quietly accepts the charity. Inside, she's drowning in self-doubt, convinced she's got a bland personality and zero talent for academics. She starts to wonder if a house full of superstars even has a place for someone as unremarkable as her. Back in the present at the Central Library, our girl is trying to bury her insecurities in a textbook. Her focus is shattered when a bottle of banana milk lands on her desk with a soft thud. She looks up to find Junha looming over her. He casually describes it as a dinner delivery, acting as if the tension from their earlier confrontation was just a figment of her imagination. She's stunned and demands to know how he tracked her down. Our boy explains that since it's her mother's Memorial Day, he knew she'd crawl into a library hole after the columbarium visit. It's a creepy level of insight that clearly unnerves her. When he tries to pivot to a liberal arts elective they share, she just turns her back and freezes him out, leaving him looking genuinely blindsided. Our boy doesn't take the hint, leaning in to offer a deal. He'll carry her weight on the group project if she really can't stand being around him. He just wants one semester to sort out his own feelings and asks her to think about it. He promises to see her in class if she's willing to play ball and walks away. Yoo-jin watches him go, her face a mask as she weighs the offer. She stares at the milk he left, his name ringing in her head. She flashes back to high school, remembering how he was the only one who ever truly had her back. When her father told her to settle for mediocre grades because she'd never outshine her brother, Junha was the one who got fired up. He'd told her that if she were his daughter, his parents would worship the ground she walked on. In that memory, she'd vowed to claw her way into medical school just to spite the world. And our boy had been her biggest cheerleader. In the present, she tries to brush those thoughts off as useless nostalgia, but his intimate knowledge of her life is getting harder to ignore. Elsewhere, the kid pulls on a sleek helmet and disappears into the city lights on his motorcycle. Our boy is currently clocking in at Rainbow Espresso while he's slinging Americanos. A group of girls are practically swooning, whispering that he looks like a straight-up celebrity. One girl actually works up the nerve to ask for his number and his relationship status. He's about to give a vague answer when his manager ruins the vibe, screaming at him to stop flirting and get back to the sink full of dishes. During a breather, his buddy Young-chan mentions that a coworker named Minji is definitely into him. When our boy just shrugs and says she's fine, His friend calls him a bastard for being so picky. He accuses the kid of being on a handsome guy power trip, but his friend denies it. This leads the buddy to suspect there's a secret girlfriend hidden away somewhere. Youngchen asks if he really chased Chae Yoo-jin all the way to Hankook University for true love. Our boy stays silent, but his mind drifts back to their messy breakup, realizing it was his own damn pride that blew everything up. He travels back about 15 months to high school, right to the moment everything went off the rails. Back then, a classmate had teased him for buying a pink arm pillow, but he snapped back that it was for Yoo-jin's power naps. He'd been pacing the halls terrified the gift would come off as too cringe. But before he could even work up the courage to hand it over, she cornered him in the hallway and dropped the bomb. They were breaking up. The breakup hits him like a freight train. He stands there frozen, sweat beading on his forehead as he asks if she's actually being serious. He's still white-knuckling the bag with that pink pillow inside. A gift that just became a painful reminder of his world falling apart in real time. Our girl isn't having it, snapping that he shouldn't be surprised considering how much stress his female friends cause her. She's dead set on med school, and claims she has zero energy for high-maintenance relationship drama. Deeply wounded, our boy shouts about how much he's rearranged his life for her. She just gives him a look like ice, telling him that people who are actually meant to pass their exams don't make a spectacle of themselves like he does. Our boy regrets letting his pride drive the bus instead of just admitting he was hurt. He's reeling, unable to believe she'd just toss him aside after everything. He's convinced they should have talked it out, but instead it's just over. As he slinks away, he's desperate for her to realize exactly what she's losing. Later, in a total state of unhinged desperation, our boy kicks a door open and screams at his buddy to find him a blind date. Right now, he's done, he's over it, and he wants to move on yesterday. His friend is nearly scared to death as the kid rants about being single and needing a new girl to fill the void immediately. Youngchen tries to rationalize it, saying it makes sense she dumped him if he was a distraction, but our boy just buries his face in a pillow and tells him to shut up. He's determined to post a new profile picture with a girl just to burn Yoo-jin with jealousy. He tells himself it doesn't matter who the girl is, even though it's the most childish petty revenge plot in the book. He starts going through the motions with a girl who's clearly obsessed with his looks and won't stop clinging to him. He feels absolutely nothing even while posing for couple photos. He tells himself he isn't trying to lead her on, but he figures since he's officially a free agent, a rebound won't hurt anyone. Soon, he's being bombarded with texts from the new girl asking for soup and tomorrow's plans. It's driving him up the wall since they aren't even official yet. He can't help but compare her to his ex, who never would have been this suffocating. He remembers begging Yoo-jin to hang out in high school, only for her to stay glued to her books because her future always came first. That image of her studying in the library is burned into his brain. He remembers the way her eyes would light up with a sharp, beautiful intensity whenever she was locked into her work. He can't get the ex out of his head. He starts ghosting the rebound girl's texts about Mala soup, eventually just telling her he's bad at texting. By the next day, the rumor mill is churning. Girls in the hall are calling him a lazy loser and a flake, claiming he's so pathetic he doesn't even wash his face. Sitting by the lockers, our boy realizes he looks like a total clown. Chasing someone else only proved how mature his ex really was. He drifts back to a memory of her calling him handsome while he was dead to the world, drool and all. In that memory, she was surprisingly blunt about her attraction to him despite his messy sleeping habits. But back in reality, he checks his phone and gets hit with the ultimate shutdown. He's been blocked. He tries to send a string of apologies, but none of them land. He's determined to find her and make things right. But a classmate drops the news that she's gone totally dark and her grades are tanking. He's hit with the terrifying thought that he's already too late. He knows he's got no shot at her unless he levels up, since he knows she has zero tolerance for anything that derails her goals. He decides it's time to actually crack a book and start studying for real. A full year of academic grind follows, shocking everyone who knew him as a slacker. He recruits his mom for tutoring and spends every waking second chasing the shadow of the girl he lost. The obsession pays off. He absolutely destroys the entrance exams and walks away with a top-tier score. His friend is floored by the transformation. Soon after, our boy hears that Yoo-jin bombed her exams and is headed to Korea University for a retake. He sprints to the faculty office and begs his teacher to let him apply there too. The teacher thinks he's delusional for aiming so high, but the kid shouts that he'll take any department as long as he gets in. Miraculously, he pulls it off and gets into the philosophy department. Now a uni student, he spends his time scouring bulletin boards for any trace of her. Finally, he spots what he's looking for, a recruitment flyer for a med school retake study group. He knows this is his one and only shot to get her back. After a pharmacology lecture wraps up, the professor leaves them with a mountain of material to memorize. While the rest of the class heads out to grab food, our girl is left sitting all by herself. A few classmates think about inviting her out, but she shoots them down with a polite smile, claiming she brought her own lunch. She's living by a strict no distractions policy while retaking her exams. Behind her back, the other students whisper that she's a weirdo and wonder why she even bothers showing up if she's going to be a hermit. While the peanut gallery gossips, the student wanders the halls in search of a quiet corner. She eventually stumbles upon Ha-na, who's eating solo on a couch. The other girl asks if she's also looking for a place to hide out for lunch. The two of them share a kimbap meal. Hana asks why she hasn't been back to the study group, and our girl admits she's been dodging a high school friend who keeps heading her way. Hana instantly realizes she's talking about the blonde philosophy student, noting that their joint exit the other day left the rest of the group in a very awkward spot. Ha-na explains that the guy is a campus legend because he looks like a total delinquent but is actually a model student in the philosophy department. He's known for his insane work ethic and for being a social butterfly with the seniors. Our girl listens, stunned to realize the boy she knew has transformed into a completely different man. After hearing he quit the study group, she thinks the coast is finally clear, but as she's walking to the liberal arts building, our boy suddenly appears out of nowhere, shouting her name. He catches up and asks if she's made a decision yet, pointing out that the ad drop deadline for classes is tomorrow. She decides to call his bluff, figuring he'll quit once he realizes how much work it'll be. She turns to him and says she'll take the offer, but only if he can handle a specific set of rules. She lays it out, zero interference with her studies and absolutely no distractions. Most importantly, he shouldn't expect a single thing from her in return. She makes it clear that the ball is in his court and it's his choice to take it or leave it. Our boy doesn't hesitate. He gives her an unconditional yes. She's reminded that he's always been the type to gamble on high-risk plays, unlike her own play-it-safe mentality. She remembers how he used to pull all-nighters with terrifying focus just to prove a point back in high school. She still remembers the shock of him actually pulling off a high score back then. He says his goodbyes with that familiar, charming smile, but she's not sold yet. She tells herself that people don't just magically change their nature that easily. Our girl watches him walk away, mentally counting down how long it'll take for his enthusiasm to fizzle out. Meanwhile, our boy is walking on sunshine, absolutely ecstatic that he finally managed to worm his way back into her life. Later, while she's grinding away in the library, a text comes in from Yura, the celebrity sister's photoshoot wrapped early, and she offers to pick her up. Our girl replies that she's still on campus and will wait for the ride. A high-end van pulls up, and the superstar sister waves her inside, explaining that her manager is on chauffeur duty. Once they're moving, the student asks how her sister even knew she was still at school. The famous one just laughs, calling her a predictable bear for her obsessive exam retake habits. The younger sister starts hyping her up to the manager, bragging about how stunning and brilliant her sibling is. She jokes that if she were a pharmacy student, she'd have it tattooed on her forehead. The celebrity then shifts gears, asking if there are any guys at school catching her eye, only to get a cold no immediately. The talk turns to her type. Yura asks if she's still into handsome guys like her ex-boyfriend. Our girl claims she wants someone diligent, quiet, and academic. Her sister just laughs at the irony. That's the exact opposite of the loud, undisciplined kid she dated in high school, proving she's still not over him. The next day, she heads to her general elective in room 103. She pushes the door open, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and dread about whether her persistent friend actually showed up. Scanning the room for a quiet spot, she notices a figure in a black hoodie and a cap buried in the back row. To her genuine surprise, she realizes it really is her former boyfriend, waiting there just like he promised. She takes the seat next to him, noting that he's doing his best to blend into the furniture. The professor kicks things off by announcing that the entire course will be centered on group assignments. They're told to split into groups of 4 for constant peer feedback. As the room turns into a chaotic scramble for partners, the two of them sit in a thick, awkward silence. He suggests they just wait it out, admitting he's not a fan of small talk and prefers to fly solo anyway. She's on the same page, agreeing that social upkeep is a total hassle. Another girl approaches and asks if they want to join her trio. Our boy delivers a cool rejection, lying through his teeth that they already have a full squad. Our girl realizes he's still a magnet for attention, but she can't help but wonder what his endgame is. That's when 2 international students, Wei Chi and Olivia, walk over. Olivia asks in English if they speak the language. To our girl's shock, her partner flips a switch and welcomes them in fluent English. She suddenly remembers the detail she'd forgotten. He spent a huge chunk of his childhood studying abroad. A memory from high school resurfaces. Yujin recalls sitting on a park bench, questioning how English was the only subject Junha actually excelled in. He explained that his father's business had been booming back then, leading to years in California and an English-language kindergarten. Our girl realized then that he was just a wealthy kid who found every other subject too annoying to bother with. In the present, our boy tells the new group members to just email their materials so he can handle the rest of the work. Olivia smiles at the display and calls them a cute Korean couple, which immediately makes Yoo-jin lose her cool. She shouts a denial and pushes him away, leaving Olivia feeling a bit sorry for the poor guy after such a harsh public rejection. He suggests grabbing lunch before she heads out, but she shoots him down, claiming she already has plans. She checks a text from Hana, inviting her back to their study session, and makes her way to a cafe. Finding her friends already settled, she offers to take the lead and order the drinks for the table. Nam-gi stops her, mentioning that someone else has already volunteered to pay today. Right on cue, a handsome man in a tan coat approaches, with a tray full of coffee. The stranger notices the new face at the table and asks if another member of the group has arrived. Nam-gi introduces the newcomer as Jo Ik-hyun, an older neighbor who recently made it into medical school on his second try. While Yoo-jin offers her congratulations, she can't help but wonder why her friend is acting so starstruck. The med student laughs it off, calling himself a simple drink shuttle who just stopped by to cheer them on. She accepts the coffee politely, but privately flags this guy as another total weirdo. At the counter, Ik-hyun orders an Americano and tells her to pick out something tasty on his tab. She declines, explaining that sugar just makes her sleepy, while secretly deciding to stick to something cheap since they just met. As the cashier prepares the order, he mentions that Nam-gi reached out to him a few days ago, sparking a memory of that night. The flashback reveals a wasted Nam-gi ranting over the phone while clutching a bag of fried chicken. He wails about some blonde punk who ordered a mountain of food on his dime and then bailed, even hallucinating that the guy told him girls would never like him. Vowing to match Ik-hyun's success and get into med school, he cries about the unfairness of it all. The 21-year-old student just listens with a patient smile, asking if the kid is really that drunk. Back in the present, he explains that the poor guy looked so wrecked that night, he felt obligated to come by and offer some encouragement. Yoo-jin nods along, but her mind goes straight to Jun-ha. She realizes the blonde menace has a specialized talent for exhausting every single person he comes into contact with, imagining him laughing over his trail of worn-out victims. As they step outside, the med student asks her to keep a close eye on their friend. Since he's working so hard, our girl keeps her guard up, bluntly stating that they are all competitors who need to succeed on their own merits. She thanks him for the drink and prepares to leave, but stops when she realizes he's staring at her with an intense, lingering look. He admits that what he's about to say might be a bit sudden. Finding his nerve, Ik-hyun asks if it would be all right for them to stay in touch. He wears a hopeful, vulnerable smile as he waits to see how she'll react to the unexpected invitation. Yoo-jin feels a wave of discomfort, wondering if he's actually hitting on her. Sensing her hesitation, he mentions he was planning to give her his leftover workbooks, which changes the math entirely. Even if he feels a bit performative, she figures having a med student in her corner is worth the hassle. She agrees to the help and exchanges numbers with him on the spot. Later, the study group is in the zone until her phone starts vibrating like crazy. An annoyed Nam-gi asks if she's going to silence the distraction or actually answer it. She apologizes, checking the screen to find a flood of messages from Olivia. Apparently, Jun-ha is whining because he can't add her to the group chat, and Olivia is begging her to finally unblock the poor guy. She texts back that she'll do it, drawing an enthusiastic response from the girl. Our girl suspects this was all part of his plan, but she bites the bullet and hits the unblock button anyway. A notification immediately confirms their new digital friendship, and she freezes when she realizes it's been an entire year since she last looked at his profile. The profile picture shows him at the university with a blurred girl and heart emojis, but she notes the lack of any actual couple shots. She tells herself not to get worked up over something so easily faked, shaking her head to snap out of the trance. Nam-gi calls her out for daydreaming and tells her to focus on the task at hand. Meanwhile, the scene shifts toward her home. Studying late in her room, her phone buzzes with a message from our boy, asking if she's eaten. She sighs at how pathetic he can be, especially after seeing an old invite to look at cherry blossoms, just as she's debating whether to ghost him. A new message pops up from Ik-hyun, asking when she's free so he can drop off those promised workbooks. She's genuinely stunned the med student actually followed through. After a moment of hesitation, she tries to back out, messaging him that she doesn't want to be a burden and will handle the prep on her own. Elsewhere, Nam-gi sits at his desk, staring at his phone with a heavy, pensive expression. He wonders if she truly has no memory of what happened months ago. On the day of the grueling CSAT, she was a nervous wreck on the bus, gripped by stomach pain and the fear of failing her second attempt. Nam-gi, sitting right behind her, had reached out to hand her a pill. He wished her luck as she reached her stop, but she hurried off the bus without ever knowing who her mystery savior was. He reads her rejection and decides it's probably better to let it go so he doesn't come off as a creep. Over in the philosophy lounge, Olivia and Wei Chi are badgering Junha about skipping the membership training trip. They insist it'll be boring without him, but he's glued to his phone, claiming he has a part-time job shift. Wei Chi throws a tantrum, demanding to know what job could possibly be more important than her. Our boy is busy scrolling through an old message where Yujin told him she didn't love him anymore, staring at his own stubborn reply about waiting for her to change her mind. The girls continue to gossip, noting that he's been acting strange lately, even trekking all the way to the engineering building for a simple elective. He just smiles, calling the long walk good exercise while standing firm on skipping the trip. The next week, in their required elective, he spots our girl and waves her over. She takes a seat, silently begging him to stop smiling at her. He takes charge of the group, announcing they'll meet after class to knock out the assignment, specifically making it clear that she isn't allowed to leave early. She offers nothing but a blank stare as they relocate to a cafe. Olivia admits her Korean writing skills are non-existent, so he suggests she write in English so they can translate it together. Yujin agrees, noting they can use AI to bridge the gap and then polish the phrasing manually. As the work gets underway, he finishes his section and asks her to look it over. She leans in to inspect the screen. She hates to admit it, but his work is actually solid. Refusing to give him the satisfaction of a compliment, she just starts delegating the remaining tasks. She'll handle Wei Chi if he manages Olivia, and they'll provide English translations for the international students. Suddenly, his phone buzzes on the table, and she catches a glimpse of a notification that makes her eyes widen in shock. It's actually her own phone that buzzes with a message from Ike-hyun, promising to send the books by courier and wishing her luck. Our boy leans over to see who this guy is, prompting her to snap at him for invading her privacy. His expression darkens instantly, and he bitingly asks if a girl retaking her exams is really supposed to be having this much fun with other guys. She tries to explain it's not like that, but he just brushes her off with a cold warning not to get too distracted. The rest of the session passes in a heavy, awkward silence. When they finally wrap up for the night, he gives her a stiff compliment on the work, and she offers a clipped goodbye before they part ways. Under the falling snow, Yujin asks why he's following her when his house is in the opposite direction. He claims he's meeting a friend, and when she questions why he's being so cold, she realizes she's poked a sore spot. He looks up at the winter sky and mentions that more than anything, he really wants to see the cherry blossoms. The mention of the blossoms makes her freeze as he asks if they're finally going to see them together. She remembers his old text about visiting the trees after exams, but she forces herself to believe that's all buried in the past. Seeing her bus pull up, she makes a quick exit, leaving him standing alone in the snow. Watching him wave from the sidewalk as the bus pulls away, she wonders how they ended up so bitter. She admits to herself that things weren't always a disaster. Her mind wanders back to high school, remembering how their dates were almost always at the library and how he'd constantly ask her for a new destination every single day. In her memory, she's baffled that he'd dress up like a street delinquent just to sit in the library. He asks if he looks cool, but she just tells him to wear normal clothes next time. He was never the type to actually open a book, and she used to marvel at how he couldn't go 2 hours without passing out. Still, she'd spend those hours just staring at his face while he slept. She recalls gently stroking his hair, unable to resist how innocent he looked when he was out cold. Back then, she just wanted to finish her work so they could spend real time together. In the present, she shakes the thought, arriving at class only to find the clock at 9:15. Olivia is panicking because their leader is nowhere to be found and class started 15 minutes ago. The group chat is a mess of unread messages. He'd claimed he was on his bike and nearly there, but he hasn't checked in for half an hour. Olivia is spiraling, convinced that he must have gotten into a serious accident on his way over. The girl is genuinely distressed, staring at her phone and hoping for any sign of life. She can't wrap her head around why he'd be this late after promising he was just around the corner. Just as Yujin starts to fear the worst, the door slams open and he rushes in, shouting apologies. The professor shuts him down immediately, and he slinks into the seat next to her. She scolds him for being a distraction, but he looks exhausted, explaining his closing shift at work was a total killer. He admits he's so tired he could fall asleep on the spot. His presence is a total roadblock to her concentration. Later at the cafe, she informs the group she'll be absent next week, but will front-load her work. While the others are fine with it, our boy asks for an explanation. She tells him it's the day to apply for the mock exams, so she's heading back to her old high school. He calls the timing unfortunate, but she just gives him a look. Once the other girls leave, she tells him he should head out too since she has more work to finish. He stubbornly insists on staying to help prepare for next week. Calling him a pain in her head, she makes an excuse to use the restroom to get a moment of peace. While washing her hands, she tries to psych herself up to finish the work quickly. Returning to the table, she finds him completely passed out. She sighs at the sight and heads to the counter to borrow a blanket. The staff hands her a green patterned one, and she walks back to the sleeping giant. As she carefully drapes the blanket over him, she admits her old habit of watching him sleep hasn't died. Without warning, his hand snaps up and clamps onto her wrist, catching her off guard. He opens his eyes and simply says, "Let's eat." Our girl is left frozen, her heart racing from the sudden ambush. Regaining her composure, she tells him to stop faking and get up. He asks why she was covering him up, but she refuses to meet his eyes. She gives him a sharp knock on the head, telling him they're going to eat before doing another lick of work. She points out it's already dark, and he's only had bread all day. Secretly, she wonders if her concern for his stomach is her way of letting him back in. He agrees to call it a day and asks what she wants, accurately predicting that she's probably planning to live off convenience store gimbap again. She's annoyed that he read her so easily. Walking under the streetlights, he mentions how this reminds him of the night she ran away from home. She tells him to drop the past, but he laughs, reminding her that she still owes him 10,000 won from that night. She immediately dives into her bag, determined to settle the debt right then and there. She tries to shove the cash into his hand, but he's not taking it, playfully waving her off. When she starts yelling in frustration, he just laughs, throwing a heavy arm around her shoulder and telling her to just put the money away. He looks at her with a knowing smile and asks if she really thinks he gave her that money just to get it back. When she asks what the point was then, he just leans in closer. She tells him to get his hand off her, but she doesn't move away, the air between them thick with tension. The world narrows down to the inches between their faces. He stares at her with an intensity that makes it feel like the distance is about to vanish entirely. He whispers that he did it just so she would think of him. As she stands there dazed, her mind retreats to a day in April during their second year of high school, the day of the explosive fight with her father. In the flashback, she's screaming at her dad, asking why a single compliment is so impossible for him. He barks back that studying is just her job and tells her to get out if she's going to have an attitude. She storms out, but the anger fades into hunger and a cold realization. Her bus card only has 201 left, and she has no cash. Stranded and desperate, she looks out the window and sees a familiar face from her class walking by. With no other options and her pride in the gutter, she sprints outside and calls out to him, begging him to stop. She catches up, gasping for air, and asks if he knows who she is before shamelessly asking to borrow 10,000 won. She thinks back on this as the day she successfully shook down a delinquent. He looks at her while on a call, telling the person on the other end that someone just approached him moments before the encounter. He told his friend he was heading home to the bathroom, despite the friend insisting they meet up. He was actually just trying to avoid meeting some crazy bastard his friends were involved with. That's when the smart girl interrupted his escape, running up to ask if he recognized her. He's stunned as his classmate continues to rush toward him, her desperation written all over her face as she tries to corner him. He definitely knew who she was. To him, she was just that intense girl in the front row who lived and breathed textbooks, never once looking up from her notes. Chae Yu-jin was the type of student who'd grind through her textbooks even during break time. Jun-ha recalls a moment he considered moving out of her way, but she just breezed past him without even acknowledging his existence. He honestly couldn't tell if she was just that focused or if she simply didn't notice other humans were in the room. The girl had a reputation for having absolutely zero interest in anyone else. The guys in class gossiped about her being a flawless knockout, but they also found her a bit terrifying. One guy even admitted her perfection made him uncomfortable. They all wondered why she lived such a rigid life, figured if they had a face like hers, they'd be cruising on easy mode. Jun-ha knew that if she even flashed a half-hearted smile, she'd have the whole world doing her favors. Our boy's summary of her was blunt. She was a tactless, uptight, and terminally boring kid. But that image shattered in an instant. This supposedly boring girl is now standing right in front of him, hand outstretched, casually asking to borrow 10,000 won. He can only stare in total shock, wondering what kind of glitch in the matrix he's witnessing. He skeptically asks if he's ever going to see that money again. When she promises he will and even offers to pay interest, he just stares at her before breaking into a laugh. He teases her, asking if she really thinks he'd take interest from a friend, which leaves her looking completely lost. Finally, with a genuine smile, he tells her to just spill the real reason she's desperate for cash. She quietly admits the truth. She had a blowout fight with her father and walked out. The revelation catches our boy off guard for a heartbeat, but then a smirk starts to play on his lips. He looks at her, realizing this situation is about to get a whole lot more interesting than he expected. He tells her to just follow his lead, pulling her through the city streets. They end up at a small eatery where he orders a massive spread of spicy tteokbokki and kimbap. He tells her to dig in, but she pauses, surprised that he's not picking up a pair of chopsticks for himself. Our boy claims he's not really a fan of the food and flat out ignores a text from his friends asking where he's at. He asks about her sleeping arrangements, privately debating if he should invite her to his place since his parents are out, though he quickly realizes that's probably too dangerous. Yu Jin, ever the model student, tells him she's heading to a study cafe for the night so she can go straight to school in the morning. He can't believe her priority is still the books given the circumstances. He asks how she plans to wash up at a cafe, and when she casually mentions using the restroom sink, he tells her she needs to stop being so honest with people. She points out he's the one who asked, but before they can argue, she lets out a rough cough, clearly starting to feel the chill. Noticing she's freezing, Junha tells her to head to the cafe while he runs home to grab her some dry clothes. He hands over his number, leaving her confused as to why this guy is being so helpful. Back at his place, he digs through his closet for a hoodie and pants. Worried his gear will be way too big for her. Just as he finds them, his phone starts buzzing again. Our boy lies through his teeth, telling his buddy that his mom caught him and he's grounded. He ignores the angry protests, hangs up, and sprints out with the clothes. A while later, Yu Jin is buried in her textbooks at the cafe when a finger taps her shoulder, snapping her out of her zone. She lets out a grunt as a heavy gray hoodie is suddenly dumped over her head. He stands there with a playful smirk, telling her to go swap into the fresh clothes and then get back to her desk. While she heads off to change, he scans the room to find her spot. He notices a guy sitting right next to her intended desk and immediately decides that seat has to go. He approaches the student and asks to swap seats, claiming his friend is sitting nearby. When the guy, Kim Nam-gi, tries to protest, our boy turns on the fake charm and pleads until the guy finally caves. Meanwhile, the girl returns to the room, looking absolutely drowned in the oversized hoodie. She finds him settled into the new spot and wonders what he's up to. Later, they take a breather on the stairs outside, sharing purple popsicles. He asks if she's really planning to stay out, pointing out her parents are probably losing it, but she admits she's still way too angry. Curious, he asks what the fight was actually about. She ends up laying out the whole story of her family life. He listens to every word, telling her it sounds like she's been through hell but is holding it together remarkably well. He reassures her that with her talent, there's no way she'd ever fall behind, no matter where she goes. He admits to himself that she's honestly way better than he is. He reflects on how much he learned about her that night, realizing she's far more mature than her reputation suggests. Seeing how much she's endured on her own, he finds himself becoming genuinely hooked on her. Our boy gets serious, leaning in to close the gap between them on the steps. He asks if she's actually comfortable being around him like this, and after a long silence, she quietly admits that she thinks she is. His heart starts racing, thinking this might be the opening he needs. He stares at her, but then a wave of doubt washes over him as he tries to parse exactly what she meant by those words. Looking at her innocent expression, he reminds himself she's a top-tier student who's probably never even dated. He knows if he pushes his luck like usual, he'll blow it. He decides to play it cool and slow down the pace, declaring that they're officially friends now, and she better not go back to ignoring him tomorrow. They lock it in with a pinky promise. Back in the cafe, he slides his laptop over and tells her she can use his summarized notes for her book report. She looks pleasantly surprised by the gesture, and he just smiles, admitting he wasn't even sure she'd let him help her. The two of them spend the rest of the night grinding through their work, occasionally bickering over snacks. At one point, she grills him for his terrible spelling but still cheers him on to finish his assignments. Eventually, the long night wins and she falls fast asleep at the desk, wrapped up in a blanket. He stays awake just to watch her sleep until her phone buzzes at 3 a.m. She wakes up and says her mom is outside to pick her up. After a tearful reunion with her mother by the car, she heads home oblivious to the fact that Junha's heart is pounding out of his chest as he watches her leave. He even bought an all-day pass just to make sure she wasn't alone. He's just relieved everything worked out for her. Back at home, our boy scrubs off the night in the shower and collapses onto his bed, completely drained. Despite the exhaustion, he can't stop grinning at the ceiling, feeling damn good about how the night went. He lies there thinking the vibe was actually pretty solid. He remembers that moment on the stairs when he officially dubbed them friends and told her not to ghost him, now that he's alone. He starts overthinking, wondering if he should have kept things a bit more vague. He tosses and turns, worried that tomorrow is going to be incredibly awkward. He finally gives up on the mental gymnastics, telling himself what happens happens. Morning rolls around and the peace is immediately shattered. A sharp voice calls him to the staff office right away. The high school looks peaceful under the morning sun, but inside, the mood is anything but calm. The school is in an absolute frenzy over a massive scandal. It turns out that senior from yesterday actually dragged a group of students to a strip club. In the middle of the loud venue, the seniors told everyone to stop being cowards because they wouldn't get caught until a fight broke out and the cops showed up. The police rounded up the whole group and started calling their parents immediately. The list of charges is a nightmare: forged IDs, drinking, and violence. The school is handing out heavy-duty discipline to everyone involved, but our boy is the only one who walks away clean because he was with Yoo-jin the whole night. A teacher grills him in the office, but he calmly points out that he submitted his assignment at dawn, telling the teacher to check the timestamp. With an airtight alibi, he leaves the office, realizing if he'd been his usual self, he'd have been right there with those idiots getting a permanent stain on his record. He thinks to himself that he didn't even want to go to that club, and getting busted for it would have been a total joke. Just then, he hears her voice calling his name from down the hallway. He turns to see the girl running toward him in her uniform, realizing that just being by her side that night saved his skin. As he watches her approach, he reflects on how they really do live in two different worlds. She stops for breath and says it's good timing, reaching into her pocket to pull out some cash. She hands him the 10,000 won she borrowed. But looking at the bills, he feels a sting of disappointment. He wonders if she's just using the money to draw a hard line between them. He decides he's not letting her end it there and reaches out to give her a gentle pat on the head. He tells her to keep the money, insisting that friends don't settle debts like that. The mention of being friends leaves her standing in the hallway, completely dazed. She repeats the word to herself, questioning if that's all they really are. The memory flickers and fades back to the present day, where she's lying in her bunk bed, the glow of her phone lighting up the dark room. She scrolls through her recent texts with him. He'd messaged her saying he was on his way, and she'd confirmed she was home. Her mind drifts back to that high school declaration about being friends from now on, surrounded by her room full of trophies. She can't help but wonder if that's truly all she is to him. Closing her eyes, she admits to herself that she hates that label. Her memory takes her back to that high school hallway where she finally challenged him, asking if they were really just friends. At first, our boy just looked at her blankly, but then his eyes went wide as the weight of the question finally registered. She stares at him for a beat before looking away, her face burning with pure embarrassment. The silence becomes unbearable, so she tries to make a break for it, but he's too quick. He reaches out and grabs her wrist firmly, stopping her right where she is. He demands to know why she's trying to bail without giving him an answer. She looks back and asks if his reaction means he doesn't want to be more than friends. Caught completely off guard, he can only stare in confusion before letting out a heavy sigh and covering his face. The girl always did have a knack for being unpredictable. Her expression softens until she's wearing a bright, genuine smile. She asks if she's right that he doesn't actually hate the idea of being more. His eyes widen as he takes in that grin, and he can't help but smile back. He tells her that's definitely not the case, and she playfully tells him to go turn in the attendance sheet first. Our boy leans in close to her ear and whispers for her not to forget him. The memory dissolves back into the present, where the two of them are standing in a quiet alley under the warm glow of a street lamp. She suddenly snaps back to reality and shoves him away by the chest. She stands there panting, her face a deep crimson, as she curses herself for remembering all these useless details right now. He's left standing there in total shock, barely able to form a sentence. A vivid memory of a past romantic moment hits her like a truck. Back at dusk, he had held her face gently and leaned in. They shared a soft, intimate kiss that she can still feel on her lips even now. He grunts from the force of her shove while she panics, covering her mouth and letting out a small whimper of distress. She turns and bolts as fast as she can, leaving him alone in the alley. He can only watch as she disappears, her footsteps echoing through the quiet street. He looks at the ground, thinking he was going to play the long game, but the current vibe is starting to get under his skin. He checks a text from Joo Hyun about sending some study materials and wishing him luck. Our boy realizes if he keeps dragging his feet, he's going to be stuck in the friend zone forever. He decides things have been way too relaxed lately and hits a sudden moment of clarity. She stops running and shouts for food, trying to drown out the noise in her head. She curses him for making her dwell on the past when she needs to focus. Reminding herself she's a repeater now, she heads to her old high school for mock exam registration. But the sight of the building just triggers another memory of the two of them laughing together on the school grounds. The memories are relentless, like the time he playfully poked her cheek. It's driving her insane, remembering how slick he used to act even during morning lectures. Needing a distraction, she hits up the study group chat to see if anyone wants to grind. Kim Nam-gi replies instantly, asking if it's cool if Ik-hyun joins them. The thought of that guy tagging along makes things feel a bit awkward for her. Ik-hyun offers to bring her some question banks directly, but she shuts that down immediately, telling him it's too much trouble. She knows he's a med student and realizes she probably needs his help for now, so she tells the group she'll see them later. She walks into the faculty office to register for her exam, feeling the weird mix of nostalgia and discomfort. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out her name. Her eyes widen as a voice asks if she's back to retake the exam. It's her former homeroom teacher, who leans in with a look of genuine surprise, asking if she's really going through the grind for a second time. She bows deeply and explains she's doing a partial retake. The teacher is supportive, telling her to go for it since she has her current school as a safety net. But then the teacher pivots, asking what happened during her senior year since her grades were so good. While digging through a drawer, she asks if the girl was dating someone back then. The question cuts deep, but the teacher just hands her a piece of chocolate as a peace offering. The teacher tells her she's rooting for her success. Looking at the chocolate, the girl thinks about how complex people are, how they can be harsh one second and kind the next. It reminds her of the time he shouted that people who are meant to move on will do it without a scene, only to immediately admit that he still had feelings for her. She remembers him whispering that he wanted her to think about him. Back in the real world, she finds the complexity of people exhausting. It just gives her more to overthink. She takes a bite of the chocolate and keeps chewing, completely lost in her own head. Yoo-jin finishes her snack and admits it actually hit the spot. A teacher confirms her registration is all set, giving her a final reminder to bring her supplies on the day of the mock exam. As our girl walks down the long school hallway, a brown-haired girl in a black top catches a glimpse of her, watching intently as she passes by. Yoo-jin arrives at the cafe to link up with her study group. Nam-gi is friendly as usual, but Ik-hyun sits in silence, clearly wondering who this girl is. When the glasses kid asks if registration went smoothly, she explains she just visited her old high school for the first time in ages. Nam-gi mentions he spent his day off signing up for a cram school, which leaves Yoo-jin feeling a bit of academic jealousy. She notices the senior hasn't said a word, and the silence is becoming so awkward she starts worrying he's actually pissed off. Ik-hyun finally breaks his silence, pointing out that juggling college and retaking entrance exams is no joke. He admits he signed up for a cram school right after orientation because being surrounded by hyper 20-year-olds was a bit much for him. Yoo-jin confesses she's been feeling like a total outsider lately. Nam-gi finds this hilarious, mocking her because she's always acted like a cold, logic-driven robot to him. Our girl is left wondering if he even realizes how rude that sounds. The senior tells her that being around people in the same boat can be a massive morale booster. He then offers to give the group a tour of his campus to show them what they're working toward. Both Nam-gi and Yoo-jin jump at the chance, with our girl eagerly accepting the invite. She tells herself it's time to stop living in the past and start focusing on where she actually wants her life to go. The group starts syncing their calendars, with Yoo-jin free on Wednesday and Nam-gi available most days except Tuesday. They lock in next week for the tour. As they head out, Nam-gi thanks the older student before they part ways. Inside the car, Yoo-jin thanks her driver for the lift, though he insists it's on his way. She leans back, realizing how surprisingly comfortable the ride is. Sensing the quiet tension, Ik-hyun tries to break the ice by asking if she's a fan of driving. Ik-hyun admits he's not a fan of buses, which is why he rushed to get his license the second he finished school. His words strike a chord, triggering a deep memory for Yoo-jin. She flashes back to Sunungdae, standing on a packed bus and meticulously calculating her arrival time. Amidst the crowd, she noticed a student in the seat in front of her who looked like he was struggling. The boy looked deathly ill, and Yoo-jin wondered why anyone would show up for the biggest exam of their life so unprepared. She knew if she didn't step in, she'd be too worried to focus on her own test. Reaching into her bag, she pulled out a packet of medicine and handed it over, telling him he needed it more than she did. The boy, who we now see was a younger Ik-hyun, looked up at her in total shock. Back in the present, a light bulb goes off in Yoo-jin's head. She turns to her driver and asks if they've met before. He glances over and asks if she remembers bus 581. Our girl is floored. She can't believe they actually have a history that goes back that far. When asked how he recognized her, the senior just smiles, admitting he never forgets a face. He thanks her again for saving him on that exam day. Yoo-jin thinks he probably should have mentioned this earlier, but he just laughs it off. He points out that the person receiving help usually remembers a lot better than the one giving it. It finally clicks for her. This chance encounter is the real reason he's been so invested in helping her study. Ik-hyun hints that there's more to it than just gratitude, but he leaves it at that. Seeing the traffic piling up, he suggests a detour, and Yoo-jin is happy to follow his lead. They eventually pull up to her stop, and she hops out with a polite bow. She thanks him and wishes him a good night, while he waves back, promising to stay in touch. Yoo-jin watches the car roar off, left standing on the sidewalk, trying to process the whole situation as she makes her way toward her apartment. The evening lights of the city start to flicker on. Inside the car, Ik Hye-yan has gone completely silent. His expression is dead serious, eyes locked on the road as he drives into the night. Jun-ha tries to convince himself that waiting isn't that big of a deal. His phone pings with a message from Yoo-jin asking if he signed up for the mock exam. He knows she probably thinks he's blowing her off, but he's just drowning in his own thoughts while working his cafe shift. That kiss from yesterday is playing on a loop in his head, and he can't seem to snap out of it. Our boy realizes Yoo-jin has no idea that the kiss is the reason for his radio silence. He ducks into the back of the cafe and checks a different chat. A girl named Cha Da-young is blowing up his phone, asking if he's still alive and suggesting a cherry blossom date after their exams. Then comes the bombshell. She asks if Yoo-jin is his ex, mentioning she just saw her walking by. Jun-ha is rattled that Da-young knows about his personal life. A memory of Yoo-jin laughing flashes through his mind as he tries to figure out how the new girl connected the dots. The chat log is staring him in the face, demanding to know if the girl she saw was the one he used to date. Standing in the quiet cafe, he realizes his private history is becoming public knowledge. Our boy is baffled. He never told Da-young about Yoo-jin, so how could she possibly know? He stares at his phone, his head spinning with possibilities. After a moment of overthinking, he decides there's no point in hiding it anymore. He resolves to face the situation head-on instead of playing these games. A coworker at the cafe starts grilling Jun-ha about Da-young. He mentions the word around the shop is that she's retaking the entrance exam too. The guy points out that our boy and Da-young used to be inseparable and wonders if that exam is why she ran into the ex. He keeps pushing, asking if they're still in contact given their history. Jun-ha wonders if the two girls are actually taking the mock exam at the same place. He storms out of the cafe, ignoring his coworkers shouting, and shoots a text to Yoo-jin. He tells her to meet him outside the library because they need to talk. When she shows up looking exhausted from studying, he doesn't lead with the news. Instead, he looks her in the eye and asks if she's truly okay with seeing him right now. He shifts into teasing mode, asking if her heart is racing, or if she's just naturally that red. Yoo-jin isn't amused, calling him out for being weird. She tells him to just leave her alone, but her irritation only fuels him. He looks at her blankly before dropping the reminder that she's being pretty harsh considering they just shared a kiss. Yoo-jin snaps back that he was the one who kissed her and demands to know why he's actually there. Their argument is drowned out by a rowdy group of students hauling heavy gear for the school festival. People are yelling and metal is clanging, making the conversation impossible. Frustrated by the noise, Jun-ha grabs her arm and tells her they're moving the talk somewhere else. Once they reach the park, Jun-ha tells her that Dae-young is taking the mock exam at her school. Yoo-jin is confused for a second until she realizes he's talking about his female friend. She's annoyed that he came all this way just to give her an update on another girl, but he explains he was worried she might cause trouble. He admits Dae-young found out they used to date and he felt like he had to warn her. Yoo-jin asks if the girl has feelings for him, and he admits she confessed ages ago, though he turned her down. Our girl groans, covering her face and wishing she could unhear that. She complains that he used to be a closed book, but now he's stressing her out over drama that hasn't even happened. Jun-ha tries to defend himself, saying he just couldn't keep her in the dark. She sighs and tells him to do whatever he wants, since their relationship is ancient history. She even suggests he should have just dated the other girl from the jump. She mutters about how he should have let her study in peace. Instead of reminding her, she entered a relationship that was way out of her league. As she turns to leave, he calls out her full name to force her to stop. He catches up and asks if she's going to keep talking to him like that. He tells her she needs to drop the harsh attitude and stop being so damn negative. He points out that she's only hurting herself by acting this way. Our boy says he doesn't get why she thinks so little of herself when she's clearly obsessed with chasing her dreams. Jun-ha tells her she needs to stop being so hard on herself just to survive. Yoo-jin realizes he's always been this way, always the one looking out for others. She flashes back to high school, where she had short hair and was stressing over class art assignments. She remembers entering a classroom where a loud-mouthed student was busy bullying someone to get lost. A younger Jun-ha pats her on the head, asking what's the matter. She explains that a kid named Gwang-min-sik won't turn in his art assignment, and she's ready to just leave him out since he didn't bother doing it. She looks over at the tattooed sleeper, assuming he's just a lazy delinquent. Jun-ha goes quiet for a second before telling her that grades aren't the only thing that matters. He explains that the boy is only passed out because he worked a graveyard shift, and those tattoos were just from older guys using him as a practice canvas for money. Jun-ha tells her to hold on and wakes the kid up. Seeing the paper is totally blank, he rallies the entire class to each paint a tiny corner. In 5 minutes, the assignment is done, and everyone is smiling. Yoo-jin was stunned that he actually got the job done by bringing people together. She admits that back then, she didn't even know her classmates' names. So his way of thinking was totally foreign to her. Back in the present, her Wednesday class is wrapping up. She's been working on her laptop with the group, but she suddenly announces she's finished and heads for the door. Junha asks if she's sulking, but she claims she just has plans to visit the medical school. She's annoyed by his prying while he tells her she shouldn't let her emotions leak out so weirdly. She brings up Namgi, whom our boy remembers as the cute kid from the group. She explains that one of Namgi's friends is a med student and offered to show them the ropes. Junha goes stone cold. He repeats the word guy with enough suspicion to kill a mood after a tense silence. He asks if this friend is that Ik-hyeon guy. He's visibly seething as he sits there waiting for her to confirm his worst fears while she's already halfway out the door. Later, while Junha is stuck mopping the floors at work, his coworker starts poking the bear about Yoo-jin. He tells our boy his efforts are a waste of time. The guy points out that high achievers stick together, using a pharmacy student as an example. He says if that guy becomes a doctor, they'll be a power couple, and asks Junha if he thinks Yoo-jin is any different from those status seekers. The coworker calls him a total head case and says he's been acting like a loser. Junha tells him to shut it, but the guy insists he's just being real. He tells our boy that no matter who this new guy is, Yoo-jin isn't even looking for a relationship. He gives him some blunt advice: stop being like a dog chasing a chicken and find someone who actually wants him. Back in the classroom, Junha asks if it's really that med student. Yoo-jin confirms it and tells him to call her when he gets home before she leaves. He's left sitting there looking absolutely miserable. The sound of the door closing is the final nail in the coffin as he stares at his desk, pouting like a child. Our boy is feeling like a peasant compared to a medical student in the hall. Olivia jokes that the guy is probably a monster, while Yongchan checks if Junha is actually doing okay. Meanwhile, Ik-hyeon arrives to meet the group outside. Namgi is all smiles, greeting him warmly. Yoo-jin is standing right there, looking flustered and giving him a polite, nervous hello. The senior suggests they get moving, and Namgi acts like he just met his hero. He nudges Yoo-jin, telling her reaction is way too boring. She immediately shifts, beaming with literal hearts in her eyes, as she calls him a total knockout. She even gets bold, asking if he's single, and when he jokingly asks if she wants to date, she practically squeals with joy. Junha is out drowning his sorrows, imagining the two of them together. He's pissed off that it's already dark and she hasn't called him once. His coworker comes out for a smoke and asks what's on his mind, telling him to get back inside. Junha tells him to beat it, staying out to take another puff while staring into the distance with a look of pure dread. He can't stop comparing himself to the med student, wondering if he really is that much of a step down. As he stands there, he looks across the street and sees the nightmare scenario. Yoo-jin and Ik-hyeon walking past a restaurant. They're laughing and having the time of their lives, and watching it from the shadows makes his heart absolutely sink. Our boy realizes that deep down, he knows the score. He thinks to himself that being a delinquent is only cool until you actually have to grow up. Across the road, Yoo-jin is laughing harder than he's ever seen while walking next to the older guy. The gap between his miserable reality and their happy night out is gut-wrenching. Junha looks down and finally decides he's seen enough. He flicks his cigarette into the trash with a bitter metallic clink. In the distance, he catches the tail end of their conversation as Yoo-jin tells the senior she had a blast. The older student tells her to get home safe, wrapping up their night. Yoo-jin watches him leave, stuck wondering if he's actually into her or just being a nice guy. She figures she probably won't even see him again, so there's no point in overthinking it. She turns to head home through the cool night air, and the scene shifts forward to the start of a brand new day. Ik-hyeon is locked in at the university library. A random girl nervously creeps up to his desk and leaves a yellow sticky note. It's an invite to stay in touch, complete with her phone number. She scurries away, but he doesn't even flinch. He just keeps quietly packing his bag like it happens every day. The note stays on the desk, asking if he has a girlfriend. He steps out into the sunlight, thinking it's a perfect day. An older woman flags him down, looking for directions to the business school. He stops to help her out. He points her toward a staff member who's sweeping nearby, suggesting they'll have the exact info she needs. As she heads off, he spots someone further up the stairs. Recognizing a professor, he calls out and jogs up the steps to give a respectful greeting. The professor asks if he's a freshman, and the senior introduces himself properly, mentioning his specific class. The professor gives him some encouragement and heads off. Just then, his phone vibrates. He answers, asking where his contact is. They're running late because of a professor, so they agree to meet up at the bookstore later instead. Ik-hyeon sighs to himself, thinking about how exhausting everyone is being today. He takes a breather before heading out. The scene recaps the phone call details, the delay, and the plan to kill time at the university bookstore. Call over, he starts making his way to the next stop. He's still thinking about how draining people are as he walks into the packed bookstore. He scans the aisles and suddenly freezes. He's spotted Yu-jin. She's in a simple white top, completely focused on a stack of entrance exam prep books, oblivious to everything around her. The senior is caught totally off guard by the coincidence. He lets out a quiet gasp, which catches Yu-jin's attention. She gives him a polite bow as he walks over, looking a bit flustered. He asks if she's there to hunt down more practice problems for her big test. Yu-jin admits she was checking out some regular books alongside her study guides. When she asks if he's buying anything, the senior explains he's just killing time before an appointment. He shoots his shot and asks if she wants to grab a drink, but she hesitates instantly. She tells him it's fine and tries to make a quick exit, closing her book with a firm snap. In her rush to leave, Yu-jin fumbles her books and nearly takes a tumble. The senior watches the clumsy move and immediately steps in to help. He tells her she should just take a load off for a second since there are plenty of seats. She reluctantly agrees, feeling totally cornered. He offers to grab the drinks, assuming she's an Americano girl, but she asks for something warm while lamenting that she missed her chance to escape. The two of them grab a table in the middle of the bookstore. Ik-hyun mentions he used to go to an academy that had great classes for people retaking the exam. Yu-jin asks if it's the one in the Dong district. He confirms it and asks if she's taking a leave of absence for the next semester. She admits she probably will, but she's still paralyzed by which academy to pick. The senior tells her to reach out if she needs the lowdown on the different programs. She gives a quiet nod, but the vibe is interrupted when he checks his watch. He's gotta go for his next meeting. Yu-jin apologizes for eating up his time, but he just gives her a warm smile and tells her he actually had a great time. Just as they're about to split up, Ik-hyun's phone starts buzzing in his pocket. He shoots Yu-jin a look and pauses, clearly weighing something heavy on his mind. Our girl is just standing there confused, wondering why he's stalling. He finally takes a deep breath and drops a teaser. Once this whole mess is finally over, they need to have a real talk. Ik-hyun goes for the kill, asking if she'll go out with him if she manages to nail her medical school entrance. The bombshell leaves her completely floored, her face flushing bright red as she tries to process the sudden confession. Before she can even breathe, his phone vibrates again. He ducks out of the moment to answer, telling whoever's on the line that he's still at the bookstore but wrapping things up shortly. He finishes the call, says he's heading over, and finally makes his exit. As he disappears into the crowd, our girl is left standing there in a total trance. She can't wrap her head around the fact that he actually just confessed. Dazed, she sinks back into her seat at the table and stares out the bookstore window, watching his silhouette fade away. Outside, Ik-hyun is kicking himself for being so bold, wondering where that confidence even came from. He looks back at their history. The first meeting was pure coincidence, the second felt like fate, but even after they started hanging out on purpose, he never expected a third meeting to happen by total accident. Meanwhile, back in the bookstore, Yu-jin remains frozen, paralyzed by the weight of his proposal. Ik-hyun keeps walking, unable to shake how stunning our girl looked today. Cut to Gang Jun-ha's place, where the guy is sprawling on his couch in a legendary foul mood. He's glued to his phone, fuming because she's still ghosting his messages. His frustration hits a boiling point as he screams internally at her for being so cold. He keeps replaying that high school kiss in his head, wondering if he just came on way too strong back then. Jun-ha stays buried in his pillow, eyes locked on a screen that refuses to light up. He starts spiraling through their history, thinking about the days when he was arrogant enough to believe he knew every single thing there was to know about our girl. He thinks back to how tight they were in high school, but nowadays, he doesn't have a clue what's going on in her head. The fear that she's actually gone for good starts sinking in. Our boy is tossing and turning on the couch, getting pissed that even though he basically followed her to this new school, she won't even give him the time of day. He wonders if he's just being a pathetic loser, and if it's finally time to throw in the towel. He remembers his old self, the arrogant jerk who'd yell at anyone and shamelessly demand dates. He realizes that if he keeps moping like this, nothing is ever going to change. Bolting upright, he decides that if he clings to his pride now, he's losing her forever. He snatches his jacket, done with being passive, and heads out to find her. Jun-ha sprints out of the apartment, frantically typing a text to ask where she is. Across town, Yu-jin is heading home when she sees the message pop up. Suddenly, his voice cuts through the night air, shouting her name. He comes charging toward her, and she stops dead in her tracks, completely blindsided by him appearing out of thin air. Jun-ha finally catches up to her under the glow of the streetlights, but our girl's head is still back at the bookstore. She's reflecting on how perfect the other guy's timing was. It felt like a scene straight out of a romance. She can't stop replaying the moment Ik-hyun asked her out on the condition that she passes her medical exams. Earlier on the bus, Yoo-jin was already obsessing over how the medical student worded his proposal. Does the med school condition mean it's an automatic no if she fails? She traces a small heart on the foggy bus window, trying to convince herself she doesn't even have feelings for the guy. Still, her thoughts are racing as her stop approaches, leaving her wondering if she's just being way too sensitive. Back in the present, she checks her phone and realizes she's been ghosting Junha for way too long. When she finally texts back that she's on her way home, he immediately pushes to see her and offers to come to her. She figures meeting him might finally explain why she's been feeling so on edge lately. Before long, he's there, and the two of them are standing face to face on the quiet street. He reaches out and grabs her bag strap to keep her from leaving, prompting her to snap at him to just say what he has to say. He goes silent for a beat before admitting he's trying his best to hold back because he's terrified of making her mad again. He confesses that after everything that's happened, and her long silence, he started wondering if they even meant anything to each other at all. Watching him now, she realizes he's actually changed. She remembers his high school days when he'd just lose his cool and scream that his temper was just who he was. She used to bite back, telling him to shut up and speak clearly so she could decide if he was even worth listening to. Back then, he only ever cared about his own anger, which is a far cry from the guy standing in front of her now. Junha stands there with his head down, finally scraping together the nerve to ask if she actually likes the other guy. Yoo-jin is caught off guard, insisting it's not like that and claiming her only focus is the entrance exam. He's not buying it and drops a question that hits way closer to home. Does the other guy like her? The question just hangs there as they fall into a tense silence. Frustrated, he runs a hand through his hair and scoffs about the glasses-wearing nerd, saying it's obvious the guy has been eyeing her. He complains that the whole thing is complete garbage. He explains that he kept his distance and played it cool only because she said med school was her dream, but now this other guy is just barging in. He asks if that man even cares about her situation, or if he's just another guy who only cares about dumping his own feelings. He wonders if the med student is even a decent person, or if he's just using his status to get close to her. He begs her to see things from his side, since he's been stuck overthinking everything while waiting for her. Yoo-jin feels a wave of guilt, realizing she didn't have to be this cold. She starts remembering the things she actually liked about him, flashing back to a night they spent at a karaoke room. In the memory, a younger Yoo-jin is paralyzed with social anxiety, terrified that she's boring and about to ruin the vibe. She tried to sing along but was dying inside, panicking over which song to pick. She hated karaoke and was convinced he'd think she was a complete weirdo. Our boy just sat there next to her, watching her struggle as he got ready to speak up. The lyrics on the screen count down, and she finally manages to whisper out the words in a voice so tiny a mouse couldn't hear it. Junha looks at her in pure confusion, barely catching a sound. Her face turns a deep shade of crimson as she mumbles into the mic, her brain screaming at her to just evaporate on the spot from the sheer embarrassment. He watches her for a long moment, taking in her struggle and the way her face has turned into a tomato. He doesn't say anything at first, but then he reaches out and gives her a gentle pat on the head. To her shock, he grabs the second mic and starts singing right along with her, carrying her through the song. Yoo-jin looks up at him, her heart softening as she watches him give it his all. She slowly closes her eyes, letting the music take over as he belts out lyrics about the stars shining down on them. They sit there together, his arm around her as they finish the duet, ending the memory on a rare moment where they were actually in sync.